Hello, hello. Welcome back to Finding Spirit with Tabs. I'm your host, Tabs McCaffrey, and I'm a developing medium here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. On this podcast, I share my personal experience as I grow and develop as a psychic medium, also sharing everything and anything spiritually related that we learn along the way. I just think it's such a fun space for us to talk openly and expand the way we're thinking, also learning new things. I have learned so many new things since last year, and just always excited to share them with you. Okay, let's jump into today's episode. I wanted to talk about limiting beliefs and maybe even like thought patterns, things that we tell ourselves that hold us back. So before we get started on that, I'm going to do a little bit of a life update. I have been struggling with this cold. I don't know if you guys can hear it in my voice, but I have a bit of a raspiness. I've had some sinuses, and it's been like 4 days now. So because of that, I also had to reschedule my group reading for this week. I find it challenging to do medium readings when I'm not 100%. It's a little bit harder for me to clear my mind. Also, just dealing with like sniffles and stuff. It's just not ideal. So if you were in that group reading, please check your email. I sent out an email to everyone, and we'll get that straightened out. And as for everything else, I've committed to some personal growth over the next few months, and every day I am committed to connecting with spirit in some way. Some days I'm sitting in the power. Some days I'm doing attunements where I'm connecting with my spirit team, looking for messages. Also, I've been doing a little bit more of my own Akashic Records, which is always fun. But every day I'm committing at minimum 15 minutes to my own professional, I don't want to say professional, but my own spiritual growth. Now, yesterday I was rereading my Linda Howe Akashic Records, or How to Do Akashic. I can't remember what the title of the book is, but it's Linda Howe's book on Akashic Records. And I was rereading through it just now that I'm more comfortable in the records. I wanted to see if there was little tidbits in the book that maybe I had overlooked or didn't realize. And when I saw where my bookmark was, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't finish the book. So when I looked at it, there was actually an exercise to dive deep. And I think what happened was we were probably on the road while I was reading, and I thought I'll do this later. Never did, never went back. I'm like shocked. It is at the end of the book, but still. Anyway, so I was like, hey, I'm going to start doing some of these exercises at the end of the book. And the first one was about diving deeper. And it's like diving deeper on yourself, understanding who you are and how you tick and why you are the way you are. So last night I did a meditation. I meditated for about 10 minutes. Then I did a little bit of a Reiki healing because I'm not feeling good. So I was like, I'm going to do some self-healing. And then I went into my Akashic Records, which I should not have done at 11:30 at night. That is not the best time to turn my brain on, because I had a hard time sleeping last night after I accessed them. They gave me a small amount of information, but very impactful information and stuff that applies into so many areas of my life. And I thought, you know what? This is a really good podcast episode. This is something that would help a lot of people. So the problem, I'm going to get super vulnerable here and share what I was going into the records for. One of the things that I'm working on is forgiveness, and it's kind of my mantra for 2024. It's learning to forgive. I do not forgive easily. I should state that. I often will just cut the person out of my life, like a cyst. You're gone. I just don't have to deal with the problem. But it doesn't really benefit me. It doesn't really help me. So I believe that we keep receiving the same lessons until we learn the lesson. And this is one lesson that I really struggle with in life, is dealing with forgiving someone and letting go of the emotions, and not just cutting it out, but actually processing the emotion, letting it go, and giving forgiveness. And of course, I go into my records, and this is the question I ask for tonight. Why do I have such a hard time forgiving? And instantly, the message comes to me from the masters, teachers, and loved ones, and they say, this is a problem that you've had your entire life. This is something you've really struggled with. You do not let go of things. You do not forgive people. You need to learn to let go of things. You need to understand that these are not you. They are not, you do not have control over what other people do, but you have control over your own reaction. And I was like, that's true. That's true. And I'm like, but why is it so difficult to do this? And they're like, it's not difficult. It's simple. You let go. You let go of it. You let go of the feelings, the negative feelings that are associated with it or the situation. And you say, I forgive. I let it go. I release and I forgive. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to allow this person back into your life or be best friends with them, but you can release the emotions. And let's rewind this. I typically cut the emotions out, and rather than processing them and actually releasing the anger. And I think over time, sometimes I've held on to these emotions, and these conversations will be brought up. Maybe Jeff and I are talking in the vehicle, and I'll be like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, why are you still upset about that? I'm like, I don't even know. I didn't even realize I still was. And I'll like bring up a subject. And I was just, thinking back, it's not that I have a lot of people that I don't forgive, but there's a few in my life that have really just kind of kept showing up. So that's where I was at with this reading. The other thing that they mentioned was where your thoughts go, your energy flows. When you start to change the way you think and you change the way you approach things, you will start to see those changes. They're like, it's not difficult. It's very simple. I forgive. I accept, I release, I forgive. And I was like, oh, it really is that simple. Why have I made it so complicated my whole life? Why have I held on to these things? Why didn't I just let it go? Like on that simplest form, it's just letting it go, releasing that. There was a few other things that were said. I thanked them and did my closing prayer, but obviously I still had a lot of things to think about. And the funny thing is, I always say that to people. Where your thoughts go, energy flows. Keep your thoughts positive, right? Thoughts become things. When you create problems or you tell yourself, this is going to happen, or I always get sick, or I'm not good with money, or I can never save, you create those realities, right? So when you keep telling yourself those things, you actually create that reality in your life. And I know this, and I apply it in so many other areas of my life, except for this. And I was thinking too, like, how many other thought patterns do we tell ourselves? Negative thought patterns that we tell ourselves. Maybe I'm not good with money. I can never get ahead. I don't like my body. I don't feel beautiful, right? These are all very common things that I think a lot of us tell ourselves. When we're always saying that to yourself, like, let's be honest, most of these things, it's not just the once a month you tell yourself. It's something you probably think at least once a day. And I was thinking, okay, so if my thoughts become things, I know they do. If where my thoughts go, energy flows, what if I started to change some of these thought patterns in other areas of my life? And I would say, like, again, this is gonna be pretty vulnerable. For me, it's probably loving myself and like loving my body. I've struggled with loving myself, I think, over the years. And I know right now I don't feel my healthiest, and I really enjoy feeling healthy. And to me, it's not about a number on a scale. It's about being able to go out snowboarding with my family and not be out of breath, to be able to go for a bike ride, to be able to walk up from the basement to our second floor when I'm doing laundry. Some of those really basic things that I take for granted sometimes, or that, I just am not at 100%. But if every day I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh man, I need to do this, or oh, I don't feel good, or oh, whatever, like whatever we tell ourselves, what if I started to say, I love myself, I'm beautiful, I'm perfect where I am? I think even as I say these things right now, this like smile comes to my face, this warmth inside me, like it feels good to say those things to myself. And then I think what happens is we start to eat a little bit better. We start to go for a walk maybe in the evening. Maybe we pamper ourselves when we have a bath, or we buy that face cream that we want to use, but we take a little bit better care of ourselves, and we treat ourselves a little bit better because we're telling ourselves that. And this is just one example. I think this could apply to money as well. If you're always telling yourself, I'm not good with money, I'm never going to get ahead, I always spend more than I make. Like I think the list can go on. I think money is a common thread for a lot of people. But when you start to tell yourself, I'm good with money, I'm going to start saving, I can get ahead, what it does is it changes like the neuron firing in your brain. It actually changes the pathways, and you start to come up with ideas. When you tell yourself, I'm good at saving money, guess what? You start to find little ways to save money. Or I'm going to live a life of abundance, or I can get ahead, I'm going to figure this out. You start to look for ways that you can get ahead, or that you can create more income. I'm not saying you can just manifest money to show up, but I think what it does is starts to change your reality. It starts to change the way you think. When you tell yourself no over and over, you don't even try. Your brain doesn't even try. So I used to teach pharmacy technicians, it's been almost 10 years ago. And when I would prep students for writing tests, I would tell them, your brain is like a filing cabinet. If you see a question and you don't know the answer, instead of saying, I don't know this, and you move on, as soon as you say that, you're telling your brain, don't bother looking, we don't know this, we're not trying. I said, what I want you to do is maybe put a star beside that question and say, I know the answer to this question. I remember we covered it. And I said, try and think of what section of the textbook was it covered in. Do you remember maybe a conversation that was had in the classroom when you were learning about that? And I used to tell them, as soon as you start trying to think about it, it's like your brain's going through the filing cabinet, and it's like, okay, I'm looking. And I said, and before you know it, you're right at the spot of where you learned that answer. And even if it doesn't show up, put a star by it, and you can think about it throughout the test. Come back to it after. But don't ever tell yourself, I don't know the answer, I don't know this one, put an X through it, move on, because you will never try. And I think we can apply that into so many other areas in our life. If we don't believe in ourselves, or we tell ourselves no, or we tell ourselves that we can't do this, guess what? Our brain's like, yep, you're right, we can't, and moves on. But what if we started telling ourselves that we could do this, and that we can change, and that we can make this work? All of a sudden, your brain is like, I'm listening, I'm here, I'm thinking, and let's come up with solutions to move forward. So I don't even know where originally I was going with this whole thing, because originally it started with me being able to forgive people. But like I said, what they told me was very small, but I felt like it could be applied to so many other areas of our life. Where your thoughts go, energy flows. Thoughts become things. Choose them wisely. Choose how you talk to yourself to create the reality that you want. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to be changing quite a few areas in my life right now and trying to just change. And one of the ideas I had for helping with this was maybe even using sticky notes. right? Put some sticky notes on my mirror every morning when I brush my teeth. I'm going to have my affirmations for the day, ways that I'm changing how I think. And when I catch myself into a repetitive thought pattern or a common thing that I tell myself that maybe isn't positive or has a negative tone to it, how do I rephrase this? It's like catching myself and trying to rephrase those thought patterns. I thought this was just such a good episode, and it had such an impact on me last night that I was hoping it would reach the right people and hopefully help you right now, wherever you are on this human life journey, and you can make some small changes for yourself as well. So I'm going to open up the questions down below, and if there's an idea you have or a thought pattern you've been battling with, I invite you to share it down below. Sometimes it just helps to share these things. Maybe it's something you have been telling yourself, and how are you going to rephrase it? So you can do your negative thought or your limiting belief, and how are you going to rephrase it going forward? I know I can't reply, but I honestly love reading all of your guys' comments down below. Okay, on that note, I hope this episode brings you some happiness. I hope it brings you some insight, helps you on your spiritual journey. If you feel inspired to, I would love a 5-star rating and a review. It just helps my podcast push out into the podcast world. And yeah, I just so appreciate them. But on that note, I'm going to let you guys go. I hope you enjoy your week, and I will see you in the next episode on Finding Spirit with Tabs. Bye.